Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 458 this week. I am David from the United States.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
I'm slurring my words there like I'm drunk. I promise I'm not drunk at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Or am I? There's no one here to confirm. I'm not. But I haven't had coffee. That's usually the missing ingredient that I bring up. And I kind of, like a total dumbass last night, went to sleep. I was legitimately falling asleep. I was tired. I guess this is just because I'm 36 now, but it was like 9:30. So I was like, Daniel's not here. I could finish the movie. I had like 10 minutes of the movie left. I was like, I could finish the movie in the morning. I was like, I'm going to sleep. So I went to bed and woke up promptly at about 1:30 a.m. wide awake. I was like, God damn it. Now I'm completely screwed. So, yeah, then I was awake for 2 hours in the middle of the night trying to fall back asleep, and then I woke up about 20 minutes before we had to record, so I've had a real up and down lack of coffee situation over here, Dave. So you're not getting me at my best, but you've been accepting me not at my best for decades now, so I feel okay.
I don't see people as being at their best or at their worst. I just see them as people, and I take the rough with the smooth, because God knows there's been enough times when I've not been batting 100%.
There's a joke here somewhere about us getting together and taking the rough with the smooth, but I'll let it go.
Probably.
There's many opportunities this episode since Andy's not here.
But all I can say is, my recent health journey has learned me that I need to really severely cut back on fizzy drinks and caffeine and things like that. But I would recommend, if you really desperately need that caffeine first thing in the morning, and you're like in a traveling situation, like a can of Red Bull isn't the best thing for you, but also like it's not the worst thing. Yeah. But like I would advocate, having been now 2 weeks clean of caffeine of any kind. I would advocate of getting rid of the caffeine in your life. And this isn't just you, David, this is everyone. Because what I've learned is that the
3 minutes into the episode, this is an intervention on my caffeine.
I know,
usage.
I'm sorry. It's not an intervention. You do you. At the end of the day, drink what you want to drink, man. But, my mum's a coffee fiend as well, and I don't see it as a problem until it becomes a problem. But, the human body does become reliant on caffeine after a while, to the point that you become less energetic when you've not had it.
You can get headaches and stuff when you don't get it. And
for sure.
You're used to having it, and
and I've definitely noticed that when I've been off of the Pepsi, because I'm a right old regular Pepsi Phil over here. I moved over from Coke in my 20s or 30s, and that was it. Like, I'm just Pepsi all the time. But yeah, so I would say, like, experiment with the caffeine-free options of stuff if it's the taste of coffee more than anything. But
no, I mean, I do like coffee. I'm okay with it's probably one of the few things, along with sleep, which I also just provided an example of how I fucked up. But that and sleep are probably the only two things that I'm consistently usually okay with, because I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning, or if I get it from a coffee shop, I'll get like a medium or a small, depending on their size. I don't go crazy with it, and then that's it for the day. I don't on rare occasions. Not bad at all. Yeah, I'm not drinking a bunch. And
no, mate, crack on with it then.
And the reason I know that it's an okay level is because I always whenever I've like checkups and stuff, that always comes up, and I'm like, I have this amount. I don't go, like, I'm not making a pot of coffee in the morning. I'm just having a cup, and they're always like, oh, okay, that's fine. So I have it, but at the same time, I always do tell people, if they haven't started drinking coffee, like, don't maybe necessarily start just for the caffeine. Yeah, because you don't, if you're fine without it. I was fine without it forever. And I'm honestly fine without it now too. It's more that I like having it right before we record.
Gives you that kick up the pants.
Yeah, and like I feel like my mind's a little bit sharper, and I'm not slurring the opening sentences of our intro like I did earlier and stuff. So,
well, it's all right, David, because I will always be here to derail the episode for
Thank you.
So don't worry about how you open it; it's how you close it.
That's absolutely right. Speaking of closing, I can only assume that there is a final chapter going on with the Bavarian vampire that Andy was not allowed to talk about last week. A dynamite response, by the way, that I thought about later and was like, man, Andy fucking nailed that joke. He was on it quick. So Andy is out this week, but Dave and I are here to talk about maybe the most depressing movie we've ever talked about.
Oh, God, yes.
On the show. Unless in the future we do Grave of the Fireflies or some shit, like this will probably be no, but I am that all being said, I'm pretty excited to talk about it with you, dude. Speaking of that, our first of many tangents, I'm sure, although I'm going to try to keep it on point because I have to drive to Chicago here in a little bit. The Studio Ghibli Fest, right? So it goes on every year here. It's just kind of a loose sort of like some theaters participate. It's not like an actual film festival. Everybody's getting together. It's just like a branded thing where theaters will rotate the movies out. So usually they pick like 5 or 6 of them each year. It runs from like spring to fall. And every month or every other month, there will be a few days where they show a Studio Ghibli movie. So Daniel and I went to see My Neighbor Totoro, as you know. I talked about that last week. And they showed trailers for upcoming anime stuff. So there were some re-releases. They're re-releasing The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, a movie I've owned for years and have not watched. And then they're re-releasing Summer Wars. And in fact, while we were seeing the trailer for The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, I leaned over to Daniel and I was like, actually, the person who made this made a movie I like a lot called Summer Wars. And then they showed a trailer for that. So that was exciting. So we're going through all these different anime movies, not Ghibli stuff, but and Daniel's, excited about each one. And then up comes a trailer for Grave of the Fireflies. And he's like, what's this? Can we watch this? Because it's going to be a Ghibli fest. And I was like, nope, I'm not watching this one. He was like, why not? I was like, it's really sad. So I didn't get into the details, but I was honestly kind of shocked. Like, we're seeing fucking Ponyo in 2 weeks, and then they're going to show Grave of the Fireflies not long after that as part of the fest. But yeah, great movie. I've seen it once. I'm sure you've seen it, Dave. And I don't know that I need to watch it again, but I did think of it while we were watching Threads, another movie that I'm glad I watched and also probably can't ever watch again. So
yeah, we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. All right, welcome to the show. If this is your first time listening, we are a horror podcast. This week we're doing a different kind of horror, one that it's unfortunately pretty prescient, and also, if I said that word right, and also decades old, but still relevant, which is sad and awful. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. But as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're 400 plus episodes in. We've talked about a lot of different horror stuff, ranging from movies, music, podcasts, video games, audio dramas, comics, theater shows, all kinds of crazy stuff. So give us a perusal. See if there's anything else in there you like. Everything's free. Subscribe, follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. And you can get into more of our horror shenanigans. Let's see here. That's pretty much it, right? We can get into what we watched, what we got into. Dave, I'm going to kick us off because I only have really one thing. And then it kind of will be a little segue to throw it over to you because you maybe also watched it.
Oh, I did. If it's what I think it is, yeah.
Okay, we'll get into it. Yeah, other than that, I've mostly been working this week. I've been watching the Peacemaker podcast they've been doing. The new episodes coming out, or the new season's starting soon, so they're ramping up for that. I'm excited to watch that. Not really anything majorly horror related. I did go see the new Naked Gun movie, which I had a good time with.
I've been hearing great things about it, which I was not prepared for.
Good reviews.
Yeah, because I saw the trailer. Actually, when the trailer first came out, because we all knew about this movie coming for like a year ahead of time.
Yeah,
and like the Liam Neeson casting, everyone was like, "Don't know about that," because going from I've forgotten the guy's Leslie Nielsen. Going from Leslie Nielsen to him, it's a bit of a swing, right? And like nobody was particularly bothered about it. And then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh shit, this is actually quite funny, especially the O.J. Simpson joke. So yeah, it's on my list along with I still haven't seen Fantastic Four, and that's something that I hope to sort out either tonight or maybe like a couple of nights from now. So we'll see. But I may very well just end up camping out because there's so many films that are on at the moment that I need to watch. And from everyone's reaction, like people that I trust, like Barry Ladd, who, if we have any listeners left over that perhaps came from our fan off days that were listeners to the RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk podcast, they'll definitely know who Barry is. Like he said, not only did he enjoy it, he found himself slapping his thigh at times, which, knowing Barry, like he doesn't strike me as the kind of person that would like slap his thigh on a regular basis when laughing at stuff. So yeah, I've been hearing great things, but please carry on.
Yeah, no, it was really good. It's my score, I don't know. I felt weird giving it a score period because it is definitely like the old movies, kind of similarly to how I usually just give Jackass movies like a heart when I watch, like movies that I love and can rewatch, but rating it as a film feels odd. This one definitely makes more sense, and I did give it 3 stars out of 5, and a heart, which seems like a low score or one that I didn't like that much, but it wasn't that. It feels like a weird thing to score because it is so much like the older ones and the Zucker guys movie, like Airplane and shit like that. It's jokes, like just nonstop, and they are what you would pretty much expect. It's a blend. So one of the 3 dudes from Lonely Island directed it, and I think co-wrote it and stuff. So there are some jokes in the movie that are definitely more in that like absurdist, surreal kind of goofy Lonely Island kind of humor, and then there are other jokes in it that are definitely. I would say there's probably more jokes in it that are definitely the old style. So one of the ones that made me laugh a lot in the movie was. Danny Houston plays the bad guy, or like kind of the main bad guy in it. And the first time he's meeting Frank Drebin Jr., the cop, he sees him approaching, and Danny Houston's like, Frank Drebin. And Liam Neeson goes, "Oh, me too," which is such a stupid joke.
Yes,
but it's stuff like
Love
that.
it.
So it is. It's definitely funny, but also one of those things where you get to the end of it, and you're like, am I going to rate this as as a film? Like, it kind of seems stupid, too, in the sense that, like, yeah, it's definitely competently made. I could take a rubric to it. But also, like, my connection to these movies is, like, so much nostalgia of watching them on TV with my grandpa, where, like, I was basically learning this kind of humor through my grandpa laughing at the jokes and developing, for myself as a kid, developing an appreciation for... Like one of my favorite, I don't even remember which movie it is. I think it's A Naked Gun, but it could be one of the other ones, where he walks into the room and he's like, there's a guy in his office and he's like, "Who are you and how did you get in here?" And the guy's like, "I'm a locksmith and I'm a locksmith." Like, great joke. And I sold it with zero delivery there, but the writing is the thing that's happening, that's fun, and that it's like a weird combination of stuff like that and then slapstick stuff. One of my favorite gags in the movie is a part where, and some of this is in the trailer, so I'm not really. And also, I'm spoiling a couple jokes of like fucking 400. It's nonstop jokes. There's a part where he's in a car chase and he shoots out the front window, the windshield, kicks it out, and then he runs into a guy that's holding a bunch of balloons. So all the balloons like fly into the car and fill the car up really quickly. And then he accidentally runs into 2 beekeepers that are carrying a hive of bees, and it fills the car up with bees. And then he accidentally runs into 2 guys that are holding a brand new windshield, and it reseals it. It's so stupid, but so good. Reseals it on the car so that he's stuck in the car with balloons and bees. So like,
all right, I'm sold.
I don't want my score. This is why I kind of wanted to explain it a little bit. I didn't want my score to undersell how much fun I did have. But it's also one of those things. It's just so stupid. Like you're sitting there laughing because it's stupid. I went with my friend Sean, and he was in the same kind of headspace I was, which is just like, we had our seats all the way reclined back. Like we're just there to laugh and be dumb. And there was a couple that came in. They looked like they were in their 20s. They looked younger than us. They sat down for about 3 minutes, just so probably 30 jokes went by, and then they got up and left. Which Sean and I were cracking up because it's just like if you're that age, like if you're younger, it probably doesn't. There haven't been other comedies like this in so long. Like this isn't a style of comedy that has survived. I don't want to say it's not survived. It's just not. It had its time, and even then, it had like a weird kind of like there was like our era more would have been, and I know you're 6 years older than me, but like it would have been like the Scary Movie era. It's still like spoofs and stuff like that, but slightly different. And so for people that age, even that shit is old and before their time. So having something like this where it's just this goofy and stupid, and also the references, like there were a few different references in there where I was like, these kids have no idea. I'm sure have no idea. There was a TiVo joke, like a TiVo. Actually, you know what? I take it back. It was a combination joke about TiVo and an entire collection of Buffy the Vampire original airing Slayer, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes getting deleted. So it was just like two references that if you're in your early 20s probably didn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, not going to be for everybody, but I bet you'll really like it, Dave. Like it based off of kind of, I know your style of humor, sense of humor, like it's definitely worth going to see. And Neeson is great in it. Like I didn't really think about it until I was watching it, but he is honestly probably the perfect person for this because he does and still does these like dad action movies, right? Like, and of which some of them I've seen and enjoyed. I'm not dunking on those movies, but it's definitely like a career sort of like chapter for him. So having him parody that at the same time, it worked way better than I was thinking. And it wasn't until I was watching it where I was like, oh shit, of course this makes sense. Like he's been in a million of these movies, only they were all played straight. Like I hadn't been thinking about that because for the most part I don't watch all those movies that he does. So he's definitely like all in on selling the jokes and everything else and the absurdity. And then Pamela Anderson's really funny in it too. Like I'm sure you've seen some stuff with that because they're like dating now and they have like this whole. I'm laughing just because it's honestly all pretty.
I honestly didn't know that she was in the movie.
Oh yeah, she's like the co-lead.
Wow, okay.
She's like the femme fatale, yeah, and she's really funny. There's awesome. A bunch of stuff that she gets to do in the movie where I was like, man, I'm so glad that they let her like really commit to how goofy and everything is because I could see like. I don't know a ton about her beyond what everybody knows about her. I do know in the recent years she's had more of a resurgence in like indie film. There was a movie she did called The Last Showgirl that apparently is really good. That's like more of an A24 kind of deal. And then obviously, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately just because it sucks that the world that we live in is this way, but she doesn't wear makeup and hasn't worn makeup for a long time, and like people make a huge deal out of that and everything else too. Beyond that, I hadn't really paid attention to any kind of roles or acting she had. I mean, I knew her from Baywatch, I knew her from the 90s and all that kind of shit, but like seeing her actually really be able to commit to something stupid and funny, and I mean, this is also in one of the trailers. Like the first time she shows up, Liam Neeson or Drebin is like, please take a chair, and she's like, it's okay, I've got enough chairs at home.
That is a classic Police Squad joke. I remember I saw a clip of an episode where they were questioning a woman whose, I think her husband had been murdered. And she's like, oh, come in, I'm just packing some stuff up for a charity drive. And she says, can I take your coats? And so they give her their coats, and she folds them up and puts them in the charity drive box. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing that's kind of fun about, as a kid, I obviously didn't see the jokes coming, but as an adult, you, especially like if you've watched a ton of comedies, and like it becomes a different kind of fun because you're sensing the setups and you're trying to figure out what the punchlines are going to be, because you know when someone says like a turn of phrase or a metaphor or something, it's like, okay, something's happening, whether they take this literally or like and so a lot of it is you're just trying to kind of stay on your toes with what they're gonna do, and a lot of times they swerve around it, other times they do exactly what you're expecting, and that makes it funny. Like, so anyway, yeah, it was definitely a fun time. Not a horror movie, obviously, so really no connection there to the podcast, but at least with you, I did definitely wanted to bring it up because I think Andy would like it too, but I did think about you multiple times where I was like, Dave's going to love
Well,
this.
I can tie it into horror very quickly by saying something that I was going to say anyway, but I can tie it in.
I know where
anyway.
you're going.
Yeah, of course, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Sure.
Because the thing is, like you said, how they don't really make comedies like that anymore. And I was actually thinking about it, and I'm not sure that I've seen a comedy movie with that exact style of humour that Leslie Nielsen wasn't in. Like, if you think about the movies that are famous for this kind of humour, you're talking Airplane and Airplane 2, the sequel, the Naked Gun, the Police Squad series that Naked Gun span out of, Dracula Dead and Loving It, and pretty much any other movie that that Liam Neeson, they've got the same initials. This is the problem. That
it's
Leslie
almost
Nielsen,
the same names. Yeah. Liam Neeson, Leslie Nielsen.
Wonder if that was part of the casting. And most of the things that Leslie Nielsen starred in that were comedies had that exact sense of humour. And I wonder if it's because, and there's probably someone listening that knows a lot better than I do, but maybe it was like there was like a crew, almost like how you mentioned earlier about the Scary Movie franchise, whether there was like a crew of people that ran and did all of these different projects through the years.
I know that the Zuckers... I know that was a part or a big part of it. Let me click on their names. So like Jim Abrahams and then David and Jerry Zucker are like the 3 co-directors and writers on Airplane. But I'm pretty sure that they ended up. Oh yeah, they did. So one of the Zuckers directed Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4. So they were in the mix. Like, I know the Wayans brothers were a big part of at least the first two.
Couple, yeah.
But then, they're like executive or producers on, let's see what else here. The superhero movie, Basketball. He apparently directed Basketball, and co-wrote it. I didn't realize. I always assumed that was a
Trey and
South Park guys. Yeah. And Top Secret. Do you remember that one?
I think so. Yeah, was that a Leslie Nielsen one where he was a special agent, or did he have a different one?
I might be mixing this up. This one was Val Kilmer. I'm mixing this up. What's the Hot Shots? That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh,
that might not have
yes,
been them.
yes.
That's another one that I like. No, it is. It's Jim Abrahams. So it's the other guy of the 3, not one of the Zuckers. But I think there definitely was.
But the specific
like a core crew,
specific tone of the movies that Leslie Nielsen was in, though, feels very
that's
specific.
Probably
like
the OG crew, yeah.
And what I love about those movies, and the reason that they seemingly don't get made anymore, is because maybe we moved more towards slapstick and absurdity. Whereas, and not saying that isn't in those kind of movies, but the quick-witted nature of the script and the way that language can be played with and be taken more than one way, like going back again to the joke of like, can I take your coat, or please take a chair. Like, it's such a simple dumb joke, but it works so well, and it seems like that kind of humor kind of went out of vogue. And I'm really glad to hear that, although there is a lot of Lonely Island style humor in there as well, which I'm not against at all.
Some of my favorite jokes in that are, not a con, but definitely like it is a. I would say that that's a third, and then 2/3 are I love like old school.
Yeah, I love the fact that 2/3 of the movie is true to what those movies were, because I think my biggest fear when I heard about the casting and the fact they were bringing it back was, oh God, they're going to do the same thing that they've done with so many other movies that were based on legacy franchises like Starsky and Hutch. I actually enjoyed Starsky and Hutch, but it wasn't the movie that the TV series.
It was like an update.
It was a very different movie. And then if you look at comedy updates like the Pink Panther, you remember years ago they did one with Steve Martin. It just wasn't good, because it didn't capture what was so great about those original Pink Panther movies. And a lot of that was because of Peter Sellers, of course. But the type of humour, they didn't even attempt to replicate it. They just went down this very similar kind of slapsticky, scary movie style from memory, because I've not watched that movie since it was in theaters. So I may be misremembering.
They're trying to sell people on what they think they want in that moment, too. So like that ends up being because I think even you were saying like this going out of vogue, like the gross out, raunchy sex comedies, American Pie, and then going into fucking what's his name with the beard, Apatow era, like that stuff. It definitely, you could see it in like Meet the Spartans and superhero movie, those parody movies at that point, which I didn't watch and were just critically,
let me tell you,
panned.
Meet the Spartans is the worst movie that I've ever seen in my entire fucking life, and I include Deathgasm in that.
But even those had like a little bit of bleed over from, because you could tell that they were like, well, people are really wanting to see these other comedies, so let's kind of inject a little bit of this. This was a particularly fun, this new Naked Gun, because like you said, it, like, there's a recurring joke throughout the entire movie. Like, I'm talking from the opening scenes to the ending, where people are handing them either new cups of coffee or bigger cups of coffee than what they have. And so, like, it's just beginning to end. I mean, the through line is very much like, this is the spirit of the old thing. There's the joke in the trailers of them all, like, standing in front of portraits of their dead fathers. Like,
and I love that, because it really kind of lampoons the idea of legacy sequels. Because this is a legacy sequel. It has to be, because like so many of the original actors are gone. But the fact that it actually acknowledges it in such an upfront way that they even put it straight in the trailer, and they managed to get a joke out of it with the O.J. Simpson son character, which again, like,
to me, it felt just like they made another Naked Gun movie. And granted, I'm not.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really happy about.
In all the
hearing.
best ways.
Yeah, because I was so worried that it was going to be Naked Gun in name only, and it was going to be more like, not a serious one, because they did say it was going to be a comedy, but it would be a very different type of comedy. So it really it's very encouraging to hear everyone talking so highly about it, but especially you mentioning the fact that there's a lot of the humor that you would expect from a previous Naked Gun movie. That makes me really happy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would say for sure. Like I was even thinking, my grandpa's in his 80s at this point, and I was even thinking throughout, like, it might be fun to take my grandpa to this. Like, I bet he would still like this movie, like still laugh at these jokes, even though
just learn from my mistake and don't have him right at the front of the screening, because Jesus,
sure.
I'm sure Naked Gun isn't as loud or vibrant or colourful as Spider-Verse is, but Jesus Christ, what a choice.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite stories. I think that's pretty much it for me this week. Weapons came out, really want to see that. I'm going to see it on Tuesday. I'm going to see this today. I say this weekend. Today, in fact, I've never seen 2001: A Space Odyssey by Kubrick, so I've owned different copies of it over the years. It's always been one on my list, and they're showing it at the Music Box Theater in Chicago tonight. So Austin and I are going to go see it. So yeah, excited for that. And then I think that's pretty much it. I've been reading books and all that other kind of jazz, playing some Dragon Ball Z video games.
Yep.
And then the other thing I watched, which will be a nice little handoff to you, Dave, is I got into this anthology on Amazon called Secret Level. This is one. Had you heard about this before? I sent it to you.
Yeah, so I'd heard about it. I knew that it was kind of original takes on existing video game franchises. But I'd seen very little to nothing of it. So this was my first experience watching what you asked me to watch.
I knew about it. So Tim Miller is behind it. It's in some ways kind of like a spin-off or second series to Love, Death, and Robots, and at least in terms of the people involved. This one's on Amazon, obviously, not on Netflix, but as Dave said, it's 15 standalone short episodes. They usually range between like 10 and 20 minutes. And I'll just read through the list. There's Armored Core, Concord, Crossfire, Dungeons & Dragons, Exodus, Honor of Kings, Mega Man, New World, The Outer Worlds, Pac-Man, PlayStation, Sifu, Spelunky, Unreal Tournament, and Warhammer 40K, specifically Space Marine. And as you may have recognized or not recognized from that list, there's some games in there that either haven't come out yet or came out briefly and then were shelved, or games that came out years ago and are not popular in our countries but are massively popular in China or Korea. There are a couple in there where I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is Crossfire? I've never heard of Crossfire. And It first released in South Korea in 2007, and is like one of the top player count video games of all time. So the best I could like cut, at least in my circle, my Venn diagram of understanding would be like, okay, so it's kind of like Korean Counter-Strike, like is what it seemed like in terms of a following. So there were some in here I haven't watched, but I kind of just jumped around and have been watching them. I've pretty much liked all the ones I've seen. This had like kind of a mixed reception when it came out, so it wasn't at the top of my list. I've watched the Dungeons and Dragons one, which I liked, which honestly surprised me a little bit because that one was included, because it's like a fucking D&D. Like it's not like it's based off Baldur's Gate 3 or something. Like there's no video game component or connection as far as I was aware, but it was cool. I watched the Mega Man one. I actually watched that one a couple times because I showed it to Daniel, because that one operates like a prequel. It's Dr. Light and this kid named Rock in his lab, and there's Dr. Wily and shit going down outside of the lab. He helps Dr. Light, and then Dr. Light makes him the armor, and the episode ends with him like going out, basically how the games start. So that one was cool. And then I watched the PlayStation one, I watched the Sifu one, some of the 40K one, and then I watched the Pac-Man one. So the Pac-Man one, I knew because of the way that these episodes came out. If I remember correctly, they came out in halves. So like the first, it might have been like a week apart, or I think it was maybe a week apart. The chunks of episodes came out. So I was aware, I think, just through like trailers and stuff, that this was like a different take on Pac-Man. And then eventually it came out that there was a game that was not released yet that has since been released. It came out in July. It came out last month, actually, called Shadow Labyrinth, which is this sort of like Metroidvania kind of game that Bandai Namco made that's inspired by Pac-Man. So this was sort of like an intro trailer to the world. But the reason I brought it up is because it is shockingly horror tinged and violent in ways. So that was one that I liked more, and I was like, man, we should talk about this on the show. Can't do a whole episode, but maybe Dave will be down to watch just this short. So what did you think about the Pac-Man episode, Dave?
Man, I didn't know where. I had to check when I first started it, because I was like, okay, this doesn't feel like Pac-Man at all.
I wanted to send it to you without saying it was Pac, but there was no way.
It would
like
be
the
impossible.
name of the episode's Pac-Man.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'll just have to bite the bullet, and he'll know going in that it's different. But
yeah, but I feel I second guessed the kind of big reveal at the end of the kind of cyclical nature of the episode. But like, I thought it was really cool. Like the way that the episode opens and the camera kind of tilts to give you the actual perspective of, like, you know, how the crashed spaceship is kind of orientated.
Oh yeah.
And then like you've got the little what is credited as being called Puck, that it kind of talks to this character that drops out of a suspended animation booth or a cloning booth, or we're never told exactly what it is. Very intimate piece. Like there's only two people. I think, is it Christopher Lee? Was that his name? The voice actor for
I just closed it. I don't remember. But yeah, it's the character doesn't even have a name. It's like the swordsman or something, I think.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think Emily Swallow, I want to say.
Emily Swallow is Puck, yeah.
Is Puck.
And
who is basically Pac-Man. Like,
yeah.
Even if you don't know that it's a Pac-Man thing, there are definitely tons of, like, you're in a dark fantasy sci-fi, like, post-apocalyptic kind of world. But, like, they pick a cherry off, like, some cherries off a tree at one point, and they talk about ghosts. And they talk about needing to eat, like, and to feed all the time and consume. And they talk about, like, a maze. She's, like, trying to guide him through it and everything. So, like, there are definitely things throughout it where you're like, oh, okay, those are the ghosts from Pac-Man. Those are the fucking cherry. Like, all this kind of stuff. But then, yeah, go ahead.
Miss Pac-Man's a bitch. And like,
I think that would have been a nice touch to have although I guess maybe a little bit more antiquated, but have a cool bow on her hair, make it Miss Pac-Man specifically.
Maybe, yeah, like because she's like this gold sphere that opens up and becomes like a Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man, kind of style character. Just dives into his back, like eats into his flesh, and then like
it becomes like a body horror short.
Yeah, and he turns into this like giant, like shadow monster Pac-Man sphere kind of thing that just eats through the monsters and heads towards what I guess is meant to be like the home screen. I love the. I didn't think about this until I saw the name of Swallow's character Puck, but I mean you know where the name Pac-Man comes from, I would assume.
Sure.
Yeah. So for listeners that aren't aware. So Japanese, much like other languages, can have some onomatopoeic nature to it, and so the word for one of the words for like eating or is paku or paku, and so paku man basically means like eating man, from what I'm aware of. And yeah, so funnily enough, that came up in my watching last week when I was talking about an episode of Monster where they talk about a Czech nursery rhyme about a monster with no name who eats people. And I think the line was they had like 3 or 4 different ways of saying like chomp chomp, munch munch, swallow swallow, and the Japanese at one point was paku paku. But that's what the noise of Pac-Man eating is meant to sound like when he's going along, like. So yeah, like I like the idea that they called that character Puck because it felt like a callback to like the origins of Pac-Man's name in Japanese. But yeah, like really, really dark and very sinister and a little bit sad as well. Like when she kind of goes to the after he pulls Puck out of the front of his chest. Which is a fucking badass move, by the way, Mr. Swordsman. He drops dead, and she just is kind of like... It almost reminded me, and this is because I've been watching a lot of James Bond stuff over the last week, talking about like lost projects and how some things worked out, some things didn't. And one of my favourite Bond films, and contrary to a lot of other people's... opinions, one of my favourite Bonds comes from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and the moment that is so divisive about that movie, I think, is at the end of the movie where he gets married and then she is murdered by Blofeld and his henchmen, and he basically leading into the we have all the time in the world rendition. He basically says that line, and there's like this real hint of sadness and loss in his voice. And I felt like I had something similar like that from Puck when she's like trying to get into the seal that had been lit up. Yeah. And all of this energy is dissipating and kind of shrinking into the center. And she's just like, I can't remember the exact line, but she basically says something along the lines of like, we can try again or something like that. And then the next thing you know, she's back at the ship. Another one of these tanks is emptying. We find out that there have been like several tanks beforehand that have been emptied out, and she's basically just going to start over again.
The swordsman is basically a power pellet for Pac-Man, like because at the end when she's able to like kill the thing or like the monster, what is a ghost, but yeah, there's like a reveal that it's not a ghost. It's because it's in that bigger mode where it's like inverted colors because she's consumed the guy. So there's a like you said, this like cycle of weird body horror violence. Pretty crazy that they did this with Pac-Man. Like not in a way where I'm like, I can't believe they've done this, but in a way where I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like I liked it. I thought it was a cool like. I haven't played the new game that it's promoting. It looks fun. It looks definitely less violent and atmospheric. It still has like the darker edge. You're the swordsman going through with Puck and all that jazz. But I kind of just liked the world of this. How it was this like weird, dark fantasy body horror, post-apocalyptic Pac-Man, I guess. So yeah,
it was definitely better than Pixels.
Yeah, of course. The other,
the other movie to feature
Pac-Man.
A somewhat live action Pac-Man.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'll watch more of the series. I'm not going to watch all of them. There's some games I don't care about, and then the Concord one is especially sad because that one came out before the game came out, and then I'm trying to remember the exact timing. Then the game came out, or maybe the game came out first, and then it was only out for a week, and Sony pulled it, and then this came out. So then it was promoting this game that you can no longer play. So I'll probably skip that one too. But yeah, I'll watch the rest and report back. That's it for me, Dave. What you got this week?
Right then, where to start? Because I actually watched a lot of stuff this week. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? I have noticed that there's an awful lot of classic movies finding their way onto YouTube, randomly uploaded by random accounts. It doesn't feel like it's an official YouTube policy to put classic movies up, but it does feel like they're being a lot more lax where it comes to censoring accounts that have classic movies on there. So with that in mind, I watched a couple of classic movies this week on YouTube. The first one, which is actually quite a problematic title, not the title of the film, but the thing it's based on. So there's an Agatha Christie...
I already know where you're going.
Yeah, so the name of this movie from 1945 is And Then There Were None. It's based on a very problematic book by Agatha Christie, which was released in the United Kingdom as 10 Little Indians, the Indians in question being Native Americans. It's basically a murder mystery. It doesn't have either of the well-known Agatha Christie detectives in it. So Poirot is not in it, and neither is Miss Marple. And it's basically a group of 8 people are kind of invited to a mansion along and with a couple of manservants who are there, which funnily enough makes up 10 people. And they are all accused via a vinyl record of having committed heinous crimes. And then over the course of the movie, all of these people die one after the other in the same nature as a song that they find that I don't know if it actually exists or if it was just invented for this movie, which was called 10 Little Indians, where it's like a nursery rhyme or a song where it's kind of like 10 green bottles, except each Indian has a different fate. So they are either shot or hung or poisoned or whatever. So leaving the problematic stuff aside, it's actually a pretty fun murder mystery. There's some really like scene-chewing acting going on in there. But I did enjoy it for what it was. I'm just looking to see, because there were 1 or 2 actors who I did definitely recognise. I think I recognised their voices more than their appearance. But looking at it, it's got Barry Fitzgerald, Walter Huston, Louis Hayward, Roland Young, June Dupre, Misha Auer, C. Aubrey Smith, who I think was the one that I did recognise. He was in Prisoner of Zenda from like 10 years previous to that. He's got a very recognisable voice. Judith Anderson, Richard Hayden, Queenie Leonard, and Harry Thurston. That's the entire cast. It's a fun movie. Like I said, it's on YouTube seemingly for free. I would recommend, if people are into murder mysteries, then it's worth giving a little look at. There are issues with it, as there are with a lot of films from back in 1945 and that kind of era, just in terms of the acting being a little bit hammy. There's this weird thing at the beginning where they all introduce themselves one after the other, and they look straight at the camera, which feels like something that you wouldn't do in movies today. But it kind of works. It's got this charm to it. I'm now finding out just now that the film is in public domain, so the reason it's on YouTube is because legally no one can do anything about it. So that's good. So yeah, there was that, and then I'm just going to look up... oh yes, so I fancied a little bit of sci-fi in my life, and I had a couple of hours to spare, so I watched a movie that came up on my suggestions called From the Earth to the Moon, based on a novel by Jules Verne. It's a film from 1958, and David, my God, I'll tell you something. About halfway through the movie, because I need to set the scene. So basically, this movie is about an arms dealer, Tony Stark type character, who just after the American Civil War has finished, invents a brand new explosive called Power X, which he claims to be the most powerful explosive on Earth and potentially capable of destroying entire continents. Basically, Jules Verne had invented nuclear bombs before, about 100 and 150 years before nuclear power was even a thing. Okay. It's amazing how prescient a lot of Jules Verne's fiction actually is. Yeah. But this guy that has invented it, Victor Barbicane, he is forced to prove that this stuff is indeed as powerful as he claims it to be. So he uses a single grain or a single drop of it in a pot gun, like a cannon, and they fire it at a piece of armor plating that one of his rivals has created. And his rival claims it can't be powerful enough to blow a hole through this armor plating. Not only does it blow up the armor plating, there's an entire mountain behind this piece of armor plate, and it takes out the entire fucking mountain. This stuff is powerful. So then the president gets onto him and basically, I'm giving you a rundown of the entire plot, and I apologise, but it's so the president basically intervenes and said, look, there's a lot of world powers that are uncomfortable with you with having this plan to fire a projectile at the moon. Not only because, like, you don't understand that they didn't understand that tides were affected by the moon at the time, but that would have been pretty problematic. Basically, Barbicane wants to prove the power of his explosive by firing a projectile from the Earth to the moon. And apparently he needs it to blow up on the moon so that people can see that it has worked. The president says, yeah, that's not going to work for me, because what if it doesn't reach the moon? What if it falls back down to Earth? It could hit any country, and then we'd be in a lot of shit. And Barbicane basically concedes that that's the case and decides to cancel the project, ruining himself financially and all of his backers financially, putting him at risk of riots and things like that. And he's not able to tell anyone that the president intervened because reasons, I guess. Then he decides, hang on a second, we don't need to fire a missile at the moon. What if I went to the moon? So they basically decide they're going to fire a rocket into space using Power X, and that is going to be his proof. He's going to get to the moon, set off a flare on the moon that people can see, and then return to the Earth. And it all kicks off from there, basically. I'm not going to talk about the rest of the movie, but one thing that I do want to talk about, and kind of where I fell on the movie, was I do love these Jules Verne epics where it's like, yeah, steampunk and all that kind of stuff. However, there was a moment when they were going to have their supper one night on the rocket, and I said to my mum, I was just about to take the dog out for a walk, and I was like, I fucking swear, if they have candlelight suppers on this rocket ship, I'm going to lose my shit. And literally the next scene, they walk into a room and there's 2 candles lit, and there's like a lovely lace doily over the table, and they've got silverware and shit. And I'm like, motherfucker. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Like, if anyone has seen any of the other Jules Verne adaptations, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Centre of the Earth, I think, is one of them. It has that same sensibility. And I love that sensibility, but it drives me insane that they could be so impractical at the same time. It's wonderful, soft science fiction, and I recommend that people check it out. Again, it's on YouTube. I think it may be another one of these movies that, if it's not public, what's the bloody word? Public domain, then it probably soon will be. It seems like YouTube don't care that it's on there because it's been on there for a good few months at this point. So, I would recommend people check it out. Now, onto a film that people will know and many people may love. Interview with a Vampire, 1994. Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, Kirsten Dunst, Christian Slater, Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
Fandy Newton is in this film for a brief moment. I completely forgot. She's one of...
Did not remember that.
Yeah, she's one of Brad Pitt's servants. She's the one that essentially he partly drains before he decides to tell all of his plantation workers that he is indeed the devil and they're all free men and they need to run. It holds up incredibly well, I think mainly because of the fact that it's a period piece. It's a brilliant piece of film making. It's Neil Jordan that is director of this movie. I don't think that I remembered necessarily that Neil Jordan had directed this movie, but he did.
The only reason I always remember it is because Austin and I quote I think it's a special feature on the DVD that Austin watched one time. Man, this was at this point probably decades ago, and we still quote this. The odds are high I'll say this. One of us will say this phrase today when we hang out, which is, it's a story about the saddest vampires you've ever seen. There's apparently he opens the special feature saying, "This is a story about the saddest vampires you've ever seen."
Well,
so whenever Interview with the Vampire comes up, one of us will mumble that.
Yeah, and then Jim Jarmusch was like, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I like this movie. I wanted to watch it because I couldn't remember whether I'd seen it the whole way through. And I also remembered that Kirsten Dunst was very annoying to me as a character. And revisiting it now, and I don't know if it's that there are several years between my last viewing and this, I don't necessarily think that Kirsten Dunst is not annoying as a character, but I think that Claudia as a character is a lot more justified in her actions than I previously was willing to admit.
Like, I mean, she's a child.
She's a child. She's a 42-year-old woman trapped in a 12-year-old girl's body at some point, you know.
Yeah.
And she's had this all thrust upon her. She didn't ask for any of it. And yeah, like, I completely get why she did what she did. I won't go into details. You know, I've ruined one movie today for people. I'm not going to ruin another. So yeah, I think that was my biggest surprise coming out of that movie, was that actually I didn't hate her character anymore. And I was a lot sadder when it came to her character's ultimate demise than I was previously. Also, that's just a badass fucking scene. Like when Brad Pitt, Louis, kind of forces his way into the oubliette or whatever it is that thing is, and there's the previously newly turned mother figure for Claudia, shielding Claudia from the sun. Ultimately, it didn't help, but I think that was where I kind of keyed into it, and I was like, she just wanted a mother figure. Like, you know, she had her mother taken from her way too young, and she just wanted to, if she couldn't be a woman, she just wanted to be a little girl with a mother. And yeah, it's a sad film. It is a very sad film. Enjoyed Antonio Banderas in it. I completely forgot he was in the movie. I feel like there's a lot on the page that was thrown out for his character. It just felt like Louis is just like, okay, I'm going to hang around with you now. And, oh, actually, you can't teach me anything, so no, I'm not.
Right. I think that's the case based off of Austin was. I've asked Austin a lot about this universe because back in high school, maybe after high school, he read a bunch of them, at least the like main kind of like first four, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I remember him explaining that dude, I'm trying to remember his name, that Antonio Banderas plays. Like, there definitely Armand. There are definitely a bunch of those characters, or it'll be like, you know, 2 books later, the entire book is about this guy or whatever, like the way Anne Rice would write it. I've also heard that this show is very good, the new show that's out right now, which is apparently doing, I think from what I read and what I heard, a more sort of faithful adaptation of that. So, like, it's called Interview with the Vampire, but they're in, like, season, I don't know, maybe 3 now, 4, and they are into, like, Lestat is a fucking rock star guy, which is... Yeah. One of the books, obviously they turned it into Queen of the Damned with Aaliyah, which wasn't well received. But yeah, one of the books I think it's the Vampire Lestat. he's like a rock star guy, which Austin always told me about. He was like, oh, this stuff's so cool, blah, blah. So like the show has gotten up to that. So I know that they are doing a much more like, let's go through the whole kind of series type of deal. And apparently it's very good. I've heard a lot of great things about it.
Yeah,
so
I'm interested. I'm interested to check it out, honestly. Like having watched this again and knowing how Anne Rice kind of it takes a lot of the characters and kind of like spreads them out into other books and kind of backs. You know, I think that it's something that I would be interested in seeing. So it's on Apple TV. Annoyingly, everything seems to be on Apple TV, and it's just I don't want to spend out on another bloody service.
Here it's on AMC. It's like an AMC original or whatever. So I think they bundle that in with Shudder. But
I mean, it might be available elsewhere here as well. I'm looking here now, and it's Apple TV Plus has got Interview with a Vampire listed. But we'll see. But yeah, Interview with the Vampire from 1994. This is so Neil Jordan has done both sides of the vampire and werewolf war now.
Oh yeah, we did it on the show.
Yeah, he did.
What's that movie called?
In the Company of Wolves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember liking
also
it.
very famously did The Crying Game, which has nothing to do with vampires or anything of the sort, but it's an interesting film. Right. So with Interview with the Vampire out of the way, I want to talk briefly about a book that I picked up from the public library recently. It's Garth Marenghi's Incarcerat, written by Matthew Holness.
I picked up a copy of this after you sent us the... I didn't realize the second one was out. I have the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you sent that picture, I was like, shit, I didn't realize that was out. If I don't buy... Like, these are books that I feel like if I don't get now, they'll be out of print. Like, they're not going to keep reprinting these
possibly
for people. They're just too obscure. So I ran out and got a copy of it. So I think it gets here on Monday.
It is written in the exact same voice that you would expect from the man behind Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It's strange because it's a combination of I mean, you've read the first one, so it's not going to be too different from that. But
I haven't read all of it, but yeah,
you've read enough to have a flavour of it. So, like, when you're in the world that he's writing about, it feels like an episode of Dark Place. When you're the parts of the book where he's kind of narrating, it feels like a interview with Garth Marenghi from the beginning or end of one of those episodes.
Yeah.
It is just a wonderful balancing act. He does something very clever in the beginning of this book where he acknowledges that his main character is a horrible person by having another character by the name of Roz basically call him out and say, well, why are you doing that when you know that this is going to happen? And the character is just like, because I have to develop these mental powers. It's just like, it's so self-interested. And the weird thing is it then leads you to think, well, okay, is Garth Marenghi... he's capable of understanding that this is wrong what this character's doing because he's voicing Roz, but he's also voicing this other character, and it feels like that character is more in line with what Garth Marenghi himself would do. It's a really complex head fucking thing. It's very well written, but you need to understand. I think that it's required that you watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place beforehand so that you understand.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for anyone who picks this book up not realizing that Garth Marenghi is an invention because they will think this is the worst written book of all time. But actually, it takes a wonderful writer to write this badly in character, if that makes any sense.
I totally totally agree. It was one of those weird situations when the first one came out where I was like, at first glance, you're like, okay, that's cute. They've done this with other things before. Like, I remember back in the day, I had a novel that was written by a character from Lost that's on the plane crash. Like, they did like an in-universe thing. I think it was called Bad Man or something. I forget. But it had... anyway, it was written by this guy, and it's a novel. And supposedly, if you read the in-universe novel, there ended up being clues about the show, blah, blah, blah. I bought that because I loved Lost. I bought the video game. Like, I was so into it and trying to figure out, mysteries. So, like, this kind of idea isn't new. where they did it with the second or third, might have been the third Ant-Man movie, where they did like a Scott Lang's autobiography that you can buy or whatever. It's like an in-universe type of thing. This to me, so that's what I thought it was going to be at first when I first heard about it. But then looking more into it, you're like, okay, what's his name? Matthew Holness. Like he clearly wrote this. Like they wrote all of this stuff. He's in character on book tours as Garth Marenghi promoting the book. When you see the book and actually look at it, you're like, all right, this isn't like a cash grab. I don't even know what cash they have to grab. It's such a niche kind of, like, it has a fan base, but it's not massive by any means. I mean, probably more so over in your neck of the woods than mine, for sure. But even then, it's not like it's The Office or some shit where, I mean, that's more of an American thing, but in terms of popularity, I think. But where it's huge and it's ubiquitous, whatever. But on top of that, like you said, the writing it's not even that they did something where it's like, oh, here's like an adaptation of a couple episodes. It's like a brand new thing written within the formatting of the show as a fictional character writing about other like, it's all these layers deep that you then, once you have all the context, you're like, oh shit, this is pretty special and also kind of impressive and awesome that they really like dedicated themselves to this level of quality for what it is. But it is also one of those things where I'm sure if you're a publicist or a marketing person, you're just like, how the fuck, like, how do we sell this? Like, unless you know exactly what it is, or you're from at the very least familiar with the show. And when I say familiar, I mean you have to watch the show. It's not really for anybody else. Like I could see, like you said, someone may be picking it up, but then it would be a coin toss. They'd either find it funny and kind of get that it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek in some ways, or they would think it's the most arrogant bullshit book ever written by this blowhard guy. So, yeah, I love shit like that. It's one of those things that it happens so rarely in pop culture because everything is obviously dominated and kind of run by numbers, like they want stuff to sell. And I get that to a certain degree. But when you have something at this level where you can tell the people are doing it because they just love the creative process around all of it, and they're not concerned about moving as many units of it as possible, like it's pretty rare. So and there's a third one coming out in October. Like, oh, that's awesome. He's doing a whole trilogy. Yeah, it's crazy.
And like I've read the entire thing so far in Matthew Holness's voice, or Garth Marenghi's voice as well, sure, which helps so much. And also, like, because I've not picked up or read the first one as of yet. I think I probably will, judging by how much I'm enjoying this one so far anyway. Does he use as much judicious use of margin notes in the first one as he seems to have done in the second one? Like, there's at least 2 or 3 per page.
Yeah, that's my memory, is that it was similar. It's been a while. I think the first one came out a few years ago. So, oh shit, Incarcerat came out in 2023. So it's been out for a while. And then the new one comes out this October. But yeah, my memory is that was the case too. I need to go back, and I think from what I remember when it came out, I started reading it, was pleasantly surprised, but then also was like, I should probably rewatch the show. Like it had been long enough that I was like, I want the show to be as fresh in my head as possible, and then dive into this, because the show is like just so precious. Like, there's so few episodes of it, and it's so short, and it's so specific that I was like, it honestly is a good enough excuse for me to just rewatch all the episodes. And then obviously didn't get around to doing that. So, but yeah, maybe I'll do that now that I've got the second book on the way. It's pretty much also, if you're a fan of the show, I'm going to guess the closest thing we're ever going to get to more of the show. It doesn't seem like a show that they'll actually be able to. Again, it's not like other shows where another network will pick it up. Oh, good news, everyone. Netflix has picked up Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Like, not going to happen, probably. Too obscure. So, book sequel is a pretty good consolation prize, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, though I've really enjoyed it. I definitely would say, if anyone has seen Dark Place and hasn't yet picked up either of these books, then I feel fairly safe in recommending either of them, even though I've not read the first one, just based on what I've read of the second one so far. So
yeah,
definitely check that one out. And then there's a couple more things to mention. I think we'll leave we'll leave this one until next week. I'll say what it is, but I won't go into any detail on it. The reason that I've been watching a lot of James Bond content recently is because my YouTube algorithm finally kicked into the fact that I actually enjoy watching Patrick H. Willems videos. And
Nice.
He released one this week about the Daniel Craig era of James Bond, the title of which is "The Daniel Craig James Bond Era is the weirdest franchise ever." And he's not wrong. He's absolutely spot on. But we'll talk about that probably a bit more next week because Andy put a message up in the group chat with us saying that it was out. And unusually for me, I'd already seen it. So I was like, yes, I've already seen this. But I think that it would be cool if we waited so that we could all speak about it together. So I'll leave that for next week. But I'll suffice to say that I absolutely agree with what Willems says about a majority of it. And there's a running joke in the video essay about which drink is paired with which film, which I just very much enjoyed. So the last thing on the list, and this was a real left field movie. It's another movie that was on YouTube, and for some reason there were certain words in it that were censored, and I don't understand why they were censored. It will make sense in a minute. So I'm quite a fan of Natasha Lyonne. I didn't realise that she's in the new Fantastic Four movie. I just found that out randomly the other day.
Small role, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've been watching season 2 of Poker Face, slowly but surely getting through that and very much enjoying it. And I honestly, I saw the original American Pie years and years and years ago, and she's in that, but I didn't really remember her too much from it. And so this came up on YouTube, and it looked like it was one of her very early roles, a much younger role anyway. And I was like, oh, I wonder how her voice was back then and how she, how she acted, because I'll just let's not bury the lead any longer. There's a movie called But I'm a Cheerleader from 1999, and in it there's like the poster. She's got like long blonde hair. She's presenting as like a high school cheerleader type, and I was like, okay, I've not seen her like that before. Everything I've seen her in, she's been smoking cigarettes, and she's got the frizzy hair, and like she's more of kind of like a tomboy kind of character. So I was like, okay, I'll watch like 5 minutes of this to see like what her voice is like and like how she presents in it. And I ended up watching the whole movie because I really fucking enjoyed it. So this is a movie about conversion therapy. And she is the main character. She plays a character called Megan, who is sent to a conversion therapy place by her parents because she's vegetarian and has a Melissa Etheridge poster. And so they think that she's a lesbian. So they send her to this ranch, which is run by a woman by the name of Mary Brown, who has a son who is very clearly gay. But apparently she doesn't see that. And there's a bunch of other... fuck it, I'll call them inmates because it's basically a prison. There's a bunch of other inmates there, male and female, who are all also going through conversion therapy, including Clea Duval, who I probably remember first and foremost as being in The Faculty. She's the girl with the short brown hair, bit of a tomboy as well. But also, like going through the cast, you've got Melanie Linsky, who people may remember from 2.5 Men. She was Rose in that. And there's a small part for Michelle Williams in it. RuPaul Charles is in it as one of the camp. What's the word I want to use here? They cast a gay drag queen as a camp counselor at a conversion therapy ranch. They know what they're doing. Like, this film is absolutely a liberal movie. This isn't a conservative movie that is trying to make people think that conversion therapy is a good thing at all. And they set their stall out very, very early. I I really like the way that the entirety of the ranch is painted in these bright colours, like pinks and blues, and they have like a car that they work on to try and make the boys more manly by learning how to be mechanics, and that car is painted entirely blue from top to tail, including the windows and everything. And it's a film that is not very good, but absolutely has its heart in the right place. And I think it's been cut to shreds by YouTube and by whoever it is that put it up so that it would be accepted by YouTube. There are definitely scenes missing from it, and every time someone uses the word homosexual, for some reason, that is muted. I guess because it has the word sexual in it. I don't think it's because YouTube are like, oh, you can't say homosexual, because they say gay and queer and all that kind of stuff quite openly and often during the movie.
Might have been whoever they uploaded it, maybe they, like, country-wise might have been a thing. Yeah,
maybe.
I'm not sure.
Maybe, I don't know. But it does do its job in blanking out some words that don't need to be used, because the F-bomb is used quite a lot. The other one, which you would understand would be used quite a lot during a conversion therapy movie. But yeah, so it turns out that Megan is gay. They were right on that front. But all that the conversion therapy does is to make her more comfortable in her own skin, because she learns who she actually is and ends up falling in love with Clea Duvall's character. And it's a really quirky, fun, if a conversion therapy movie can be fun, movie. Like there's these wonderful scenes where the son of the camp owner, who is very clearly gay, as I've already mentioned, he's like wearing like high cut jean shorts and like tank tops. He's walking around and like he's got like a rake and like a chainsaw in his hands. He puts the chainsaw down, he's holding the rake so it's like at 45 degrees from his groin, and he's just gently rubbing his hand up and down the shaft of the rake while RuPaul's character is standing there just kind of biting his lip. And because RuPaul's character says, like, I used to be a gay as well, but I went to conversion therapy and it worked for me. And no, it clearly didn't. You're just denying who you really are. And I think that's what this film is quite fun, quite good at, is that it lays out very clearly that you are who you are, and you can try to deny it, and you may succeed in denying it in terms of convincing other people, but ultimately you're just going to make yourself unhappy because you're not able to lead your best life. It's got there are a couple of ex-gays called Larry and Lloyd, who basically kind of take the kids out for a night on the town at some point during the movie. And they have one of my favourite interactions of a couple in a movie ever, where they have a real disagreement, but they use their words and they make up and they apologise. And in the space of like a minute and a half, they have a full-on argument. They make up, they talk about their feelings and how they feel and why they feel that way, and then they move on. And it's one of the most healthy depictions of a relationship that I've ever seen in a movie. And it's this shitty fucking film. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was made by Lionsgate. It was one of the early Lionsgate films, apparently. But yeah, I would recommend people check it out, honestly. Like, it's a bad movie, but its heart is in the right place, and I think that it's got a message which people should see. So, but yeah, it's got that early 2000s kind of American Pie sensibility, where it's like she thinks back on, like, maybe I am gay, and then suddenly she's like, well, I was hanging around with all these cheerleaders, and suddenly you just get all these pictures of like bouncing boobs and stuff. And so, you know, like it's not backwards and coming forwards for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's one of those films that, despite its shortcomings, I think it is worthwhile watching, because it clearly has a message which is worth putting out there. So,
nice.
Yeah, there we go. So that was the doorbell. I'll be back in a second. Keep recording. Okay. I will cut all of this out and put a jingle in.
Okay.
yeah, that's everything that I watched this week. Quite a list, but we got there eventually.
Alrighty, sounds good. Okay, let's talk about our movie this week, Dave. Threads, 1984. Threads is a 1984 apocalyptic war drama television film directed and produced by Mick Jackson, written by Barry Hines. A dramatic account of the potential medical, economic, social, and environmental consequences of a nuclear war in Britain. It follows two families in Sheffield as a confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union erupts into war and a general nuclear exchange between NATO and the Warsaw Pact. I'll read a little bit more than I usually do here off Wikipedia, just because I think this one deserves to have some of the context and everything thrown out there. An international co-production between the BBC, Nine Network, and Western World Television. It was shot on a budget of 400,000. Is that pounds or euros? That's pounds, right? Yeah, pounds. Equivalent to, let's say, 1.3 million in 2023. It was the first of its kind to depict a nuclear winter and has been cited as the film, quote, which comes closest to representing the full horror of nuclear war and its aftermath, as well as the catastrophic impact that the event would have on human culture, end quote. It has been compared to The War Game from 1966 and The Day After from 1983. So, yes, this was a film I was definitely been aware of for some years now. It was one that is brought up in horror lists. Usually you see it a lot in lists that are like, 15 horror films that are great that you've never even heard of, that kind of shit. And I think the reason it ends up on a lot of those lists is because it's not necessarily pitched as a horror movie, although there are definitely moments in it that I think lean into that. It was obviously had a much wider release. It was on TV, general public, lots of huge, there's multiple special features on the disc that I have of people talking about it and when it came out and the impact that it had and everything else. But the terrifying part of all of it definitely, I think, makes sense for you to then add it to the horror column a little bit, because it is one of those, I think, much like serial kill, home invasion type stuff, where it's like it's not necessarily something that is definitely or probably going to happen, but you could easily imagine it happening and what that would look like. Put yourself in that situation. How would this play out for you, for your family, etc. And Threads is one of those movies. So yeah, lots of context for me around this one that I was always aware of, but had never actually watched until now. It's a longer movie. It's close to 2 hours long. So longer for this podcast or for horror movies. It is a docudrama in the kind of truest sense in a lot of ways too, where you've got narration, you've got text on screen, breaking down details, what's happening where, what things are progressing or not or regressing rather, or in other situations regressing, I guess. And then also we have scenes of drama, scenes of characters, people going about their lives. It reminded me honestly a lot. Well, I don't want to go too far in yet. So this is, I'm assuming, the first time you've seen it as well, Dave. So why don't you kick us off? What did you think of this movie overall?
It's very, very good and very, very depressing. And
you've summed up the episode, I think.
Yeah.
I agree. I did think it was very good and also very depressing.
I think what struck me actually was one of the first things that I noticed was just how, despite the times being different, how similar certain things were. So, for example, I think we all experienced during the COVID epidemic, pandemic even, the way that prices were put up for certain items, and shopping became a case of basically just clambering over other people to get at things. I thought it was interesting that they represented that so well in 1984, albeit for a completely different reason. Also, I've had several times in my adult lifetime when I've owned a car and needed to get petrol, where there have been runs on petrol for various reasons. Again, whether it be COVID or whether it be because there is a blockade, or Russia is not allowing oil exports from certain places, so basically panic buying. It's not because there's a shortage of supply. It's because everyone suddenly is like, oh, we all need to stock up on this thing. And the supply lines aren't built to deal with that kind of demand all the time. And that, again, is something that's represented in this movie, albeit for other reasons. I think the fact that this movie is very clearly, and looking at the end credits, the number of doctors that are involved in the planning and making of this movie, very clearly a lot of thought has gone into what would happen should such a thing occur. And I think the thing that boggles the mind the most is when there is something like this out in the world, which quite frankly should be required viewing for anyone who is in any way in charge of a nuclear arsenal. I wonder if people saw this movie, would they ever think that launching any kind of nuclear armament would be a good idea? Because clearly it's mutual destruction. And if you look at what happens in this movie to people living in Sheffield, how could you think that that is an ideal endgame for wherever you are in the world? Because, you know, if America launches first, then Russia's going to launch back. So both of them are going to be obliterated. Vice versa. If Russia launches first, you know, America does likewise. You've got other nuclear powers similarly that will do that. Basically, like, we're all fucked. If one goes off, it all goes off. And that mutually assured destruction has been argued as a reason why we all need to have nuclear armaments, because it's the one thing that stops anyone from using it. But something like this, I think, is a much better argument for why no one should use it. Because just look at it. Like, it never occurred to me. Like, you know, we've all played Fallout games, and we've seen how societies are, like, you know, tens of thousands of years in some extreme cases, perhaps, after something like this happening. But it never. I think what this film does so well is it doesn't butter you up. It doesn't soften the blows. It takes the gloves off, and it's just like, no, this is what's going to happen if such a thing were to occur. This is what you could face, and nobody's making out of it, you know, very well. So it's really depressing, but it needs to be, because this wasn't made for entertainment purposes. This was made for educational purposes. And while I was watching it, I thought about the episode that we did a while ago where we were talking about different British educational movies. You know, like, you know, don't play on the railroad, and don't do this and don't do that, and the fireworks. You know, if when you're done with your sparkler, put it in a bucket full of water or full of sand. And this is like a 2-hour informational video. In the exact same way, it does a great job of really impressing on you just what an awful thing a nuclear war would be. And again, I can't see how anyone that has seen this movie can think that nuclear weapons are a great idea. But unfortunately, we're in a position where one side isn't going to get rid of them because the other side will still have them, and that makes it all the more likely that they'll use them if they know that they're not going to get any comeback on it.
Yep.
It really is depressing. But what I will say is that I thought that for the time and for the budget, the production was really well done. The actors were superb in their roles. The Karen Meager, who plays Ruth, I just think was wonderful in this. And also just the fact that there were times in that bunker with the town officials where I feel like they probably said, just improvise. Just improv, because there was so much chaos in some of those scenes. There was no structure whatsoever, and it felt so real that I can't think for a second that was scripted. That had to be something where they were just like, okay, here's a brief outline of what you've got in your hands and what you're trying to do. You over there, this is what you're trying to do. Go. and we'll just film. And the chaos that resulted, I thought, was really effective from that point of view. Just good Lord. It's up there with, this is way past Hatchie. Like, Hatchie is heartwarming in places. None of this is heartwarming whatsoever. This is well up there with Eden Lake for a movie that I never want to watch again, but absolutely I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, I was going to say Grave of the Fireflies, we mentioned earlier, Requiem for a Dream. Here's a movie that, yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. The thing that I would say I enjoyed the movie. I mean, it's a weird word to use. Like, I think you can still enjoy it as a film because, at least in my case, I was surprised by how effective it was. Have you ever watched The Wire, Dave, the HBO show?
No, I should, because I know it's really well loved by a lot of people.
And it's okay that you haven't, but the only reason I ask is because there's a weird phenomenon. At least I've seen the first season of The Wire twice, and I've seen the beginning of the second season, but haven't watched past that. So I haven't watched all of it. I think there's 5 seasons. And then each season kind of has a different angle with Baltimore. So the first season is like the cops specifically trying to bust this drug thing that's happening in this one specific neighborhood. Then the second season is about like the dock workers and like the unions and stuff that go on there. So like the characters end up, some of them carrying over from season to season, but they change the focus. So the thing about The Wire, at least the first season, and maybe this changes, I don't know, but and this is also going off of my memory, there's a weird thing I remember experiencing both times I started watching this show, which is it's especially jarring in that because you see actors that you recognize. So like Lance Reddick is in the first season, for example, and you see Lance Reddick, your mind fills in blanks and connections to, for me, it's like John Wick or Destiny, all these different roles that he's been in. But then the aesthetic, the approach, the sets, everything about it is done so specifically in a way that feels not even grounded like you would hear people describe movies as being grounded, but grounded in a way where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like a movie anymore. It feels like real life. So they've gotten it to a point. This was obviously a show on HBO 20 years ago, so there's some of it is going to be, aesthetic differences in general, but it's also the same era as Sopranos and other shows on the air that didn't have the same thing. But like the sets that they're in, the offices that they're in, they look like places, and they probably potentially were real places, but they look like places you would just end up working at if you were a cop and were in Baltimore assigned to this task force. You're mostly at your desk. There's not enough room. There's not space to go around, etc. So there's this weird kind of disconnect that you have for the first episode or so where you're like, I'm watching a top tier television like program, Hollywood production, but it feels so real in so many ways that other things don't. And that's the vibe I got off of Threads right away. The couple in the car at the very beginning, and then throughout the rest of it. Like, yes, the movie is 30 plus years old, or 40 at this point. Yes, it was made for TV, British specifically. So like you have, and that's not a comment on the quality, but just contextualizing it even more so of like, okay, we've got what British TV, made for TV movies felt like in the 80s as a thing. Even beyond all that shit that you would contextualize, there was still an element to me throughout the entire thing of something that was written and directed by two people who wanted it to feel as real and lived in as possible. So like, maybe you recognize some of the actors. I didn't recognize anybody based off of what I read. I think a lot of them were specifically and intentionally unknowns. So there wasn't like a connection there. But this had that same X factor element that stuff like The Wire does, where they're able to tap into a real, like an authenticity and a realness that then makes everything else that much more compelling, terrifying, whatever emotion that they're going for, because you feel like you're in it. Like it feels not quite like a documentary, but way closer to a documentary than like a Hollywood production about a nuclear war. Like this is not, there's no like, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but the two characters that you're introduced to at the beginning, the couple, the guy, when the bomb goes off midway through the movie, we never see that motherfucker again, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's so not a like even just that, not a traditional structure for a Hollywood, you know, or whatever kind of Hollywood style system structure, 3 acts, whatever. There's no them getting reunited. There's no catharsis or closure. Like, that dude's just gone, and we never see him again. And then we continue to follow things in a way where you don't think things can get worse or more sad, but they just keep going. and it continues to happen. But again, in a way that doesn't feel... To me, it never felt like a torture porn thing. It always, to me, felt like this is a warning. Like, this is very much a sort of like, we're not trying to upset people. We're not trying to provoke. But if either of those things happen, also good. Because you should be upset by this. You should be provoked by this. Like, if this does help change people's minds or thinking or whatever else, like you said before, that's one of the tough things watching it in 2025 is like, we are closer, I'm assuming, than to bad shit when it comes to nuclear conflict than we've ever been. And we have that one element of, like you said, the mutually assured destruction. We've got this idea of like nobody is going to make the first move because it would just doom us all. But there's then also part of you that's like, wouldn't it be awesome if we had this kind of stalemate but without everyone having nukes?
Yeah.
Like, couldn't we? Wouldn't it be awesome if like somebody, and I know there's probably more safeguards in place than somebody sneezing and hitting a button wrong, but in my head I'm just like, why are we this close? Like, why are we up against the line waiting for anything to happen to set it all off? Because once it starts, that's it. Like, there's no fixing it. There's no and that's one of the things that I thought this movie did really well that surprised me too. I knew it went into this a little bit, but it does not end with a bomb going off. Like, if anything, that's kind of where the movie starts, and then from there we get, I don't know, a decade plus, right? Like, we get into the next generation of this family, but then also just the sort of there's nothing left. Like, there's no structure, there's no organization, like institutions are gone, things start to fall apart, language starts to decay, like just everything is affected, and there's no one and or nothing in terms of an organization around to then pick up those pieces. There's nothing left, and it's a hard movie to watch in that sense, but also, yeah, I'm glad we did it. Like, this was always on my list and one I wanted to watch, but it's similar. Like, I have a 10-hour documentary by Criterion called Shoah about the Holocaust. Like, when am I going to pop that in? Like, I've owned that movie forever. I really want to watch it. I'm sure it's, incredibly compelling and well done. I've heard only good things about it. Obviously, it's a tough subject matter, but it's like, it never feels like the right day to watch some of that thing. And this was a similar movie for me, to where it's like, well, if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to make it worse. If I'm having a good day, I don't want to make it bad and depressing. So, but watching it now, like, and seeing kind of, there was enough going on with the filmmaking, with the writing, with the acting, all the production stuff, where I was like, oh, this is pretty awesome what they were able to pull off and execute here in a way that still I thought really, really worked. 40 years later, like, it's still compelling as a narrative sort of thing, but then also compelling as a stark kind of warning, depressing, whatever.
Well, because ultimately nothing that affects the story of this movie has really changed in the last 40 years, and that's kind of depressing. But you know, if you think about like the tensions that caused the conflict, it was in this, it's posited that basically America backs a military coup in Iran, and then Russia invades to try to, the USSR invades in an effort to try to restore the regime that was in Iran before, and it all kind of kicks off from there. And then you get into the exchanges between. I mean, I have not looked into this. It's been a long time. The last time that Modern History I looked into, we were talking about the pacts made between different countries that caused the First World War to kick off. Like, that was the last of that stuff that I remember. But there is, like, the Warsaw Pact, which is a collective defense treaty signed between a bunch of different Eastern Bloc countries. And then you have NATO on the other side of that. And so if one NATO country is attacked, then the countries of the Warsaw Pact would jump in. Now, the thing is, you don't need to have to worry about the Warsaw Pact anymore, because Russia by itself is more than capable of doing all of the damage on the other side of a conflict to America. Like, America and Russia alone would total the entire world. But because of NATO and things like that, everybody is kind of linked in, and there are more nuclear powers out there than just Russia. I mean, Britain is a nuclear power. I'm really, really trying to remember now who the other nations were that were mentioned in the latest Mission Impossible movie, because that would make it easier for me to remember who the nuclear powers are or not. I know Iran is not. They would like to be, but they're not currently. But yeah, like, it just... tensions in the Middle East. And then, like, today, you've got everything that's going on with Gaza and Israel, and the tensions that are being caused by that. And, Iran is still not out of the headlines because of the American tactical strikes that were carried out against them. It's just, the more things change, the more they say the same. Like I was saying earlier, you have problems with petrol shortages and panic buying. Like, that has not changed. The only thing that changes is the prices. An old woman complaining that a can of something was 40p and she won't pay it. Like, oh, good luck finding anything for that kind of money now. So, yeah, this film is so effective because even though it's clearly a different time, all of the issues at hand are still very much relatable today. And although you may change the names of certain states, and you change the price labels on the petrol and on the canned goods and things like that, ultimately, like, are we any better prepared today? Like, that was what I was thinking when watching this film. I was like, okay, if we had to set up a shelter, what would we do? What room would we put it in? Because we haven't got a basement. We don't have a cellar, So basically, we're fucked.
Yeah.
So, you've just got to hope that cooler heads preside. And then and I'm not wanting to be a doommonger here, but look at who's in charge at the moment. Do you really think that, like, if the Cuban Missile Crisis had happened today, do you really think that cooler heads would have prevailed and they would have worked out? Like, you just got to hope that things don't get to that stage.
I remember in Trump's first term having that, because I grew up, like, it's born in 89, so grew up through the 90s in school. Like, I knew and heard about, from parents, grandparents, about Cold War stuff, or like bomb drills and, those sorts of things.
Yeah. But
it was never, like, 9/11 happened and there was some fear there, at least in, like, a general sense of just, like, what's going on. I remember being at school the day 9/11 happened, and, we all were watching it at, like, an assembly on the news in the gym. And then I remember me and other kids, like, looking out the windows and being like, is there going to be more bomb? I was in 7th grade, so young enough to not really know, but there was never a fear of, like, this kind of shit. Like, it was, I was too young for the Cold War. But Trump's first term, when there was that era, that segment of him fighting with Kim Jong, the North Korea shit, where it was the fire and fury and all that kind of stuff. I had just had a kid. Like, I think by that point my mom had died. Like, different things had happened, and I was feeling more alone and kind of scared than I'd ever felt in my life. And that was the first time I ever got hit with that real feeling of, like, what if they launch nukes? Like, and it wasn't a thing necessarily that I was, like, positive it was about to happen. Who knows how close or not close it was. But it was a situation where I could not have felt more, and it was a feeling I've continued to feel over both of this motherfucker's terms, but of just this helplessness of, like, this fucking maniac's in charge and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I have no control, not in a broad sense, but I mean in terms of, like, if he has a hissy fit and is able to figure out how to circumnavigate stuff that I would imagine and hope is up for somebody like him, and is able to launch a nuke, we're done. Like there's no like, well, hey, North Korea, whoever, like, please don't fight back. It's just this like, that's the end, you know? And having that feeling of like, I just brought a fucking kid into this world. Like I'm responsible for him. Like I have no, it's that feeling. I always go back to that definition that we had somebody write in and tell us, and I'm blanking on the name now, but it was early days of the podcast, like the very beginning. And they talked about how the definition of horror for them was the absence of hope. And that phrase has always stuck with me throughout the show. And that was definitely one of those moments where it was like, that's what I feel. Like I have no hope. I have no optimism. I have no control. There's nothing that I can do about this situation, and how powerless and terrifying that feeling is. And this is that wrapped up in a whole thing. It was weird watching this movie and thinking like, the fuck am I going to pick for a double feature pick? Like you could go the funny fun route and be like Mad Max, or kind of do like, where's the like fun post-apocalyptic, but you could also, it'd probably be more appropriate to go the serious route. And those are situations where I'm like, honestly, Grave of the Fireflies, not a bad double feature pick. If you're honing in on the themes and the messages that this movie is sending. Similarly, I thought about Oppenheimer and like the recent Chris Nolan one, where it's like that movie, some people were critical, and I understand why he did it the way he did it, but I've seen some people be critical of the fact that they don't show any kind of aftermath stuff with the bomb. They show other people reacting to it, and being messed up by it, and him being messed up by it. But Nolan makes that decision to not show kind of like the graphic stuff while still dealing with the weight of it. And I thought about that, of like, this is kind of a good double feature pick for that. And this, again, going from a perspective of like taking this seriously, because this is a movie that I don't want to say does the opposite of Oppenheimer, but in some ways is the other side of the coin, where it is all exposure to what the effects are, what the fallout is. Obviously, it's dramatized, it's fictionalized, it's not real footage, but it is showing and saying like, this is how this stuff plays out. And there's no third act turn. There's no like, oh hey, we get it together as a human, like as a species, and we work together. Like, no, that doesn't happen. Shit just gets worse, or it gets bad in different ways, and life continues to move on, but it continues to move on for the people that are here, that have survived. I mean, to quote another horror movie, who will survive and what will be left of them? Isn't that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tagline? Like, that's kind of this movie. It's like, there are people that survive, but what kind of living, what kind of existence is it when, not just culturally speaking, but just biologically speaking, and the things that have happened to the environment because of the nuclear fallout and everything else. So yeah, weird. Like I kind of, this movie was exactly what I expected, but at the same time, not quite as, I don't know. It was depressing as I expected, but not quite. Yeah. It's still a movie you can watch and discuss and talk about, and I think is really well done. And like the message didn't overshadow the execution of it to me. Like I thought that the execution and the actual film itself, both as an educational sort of thing, but then also as a horror film, as a drama, as something to like really kind of provoke those sort of feelings, like I thought was pretty effective too. Usually when you deal with shit like this, it seems like stuff is kind of sacrificed for one end or the other. Either something's too preachy and it's not enough of a movie, or vice versa, it's too much of a movie and the messaging is kind of muddled. I felt like this did a pretty good job of being a pretty well executed production, but then also really making you inhabit and live in that world, as uncomfortable as it is.
Yeah, I think the runtime helps as well, because of the fact that it's able to be decompressed, and in some places it feels like it almost goes too long. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. Like I said that at the top of, and I almost followed it up right then with saying like it's longer than what we normally talk about, but in this case, to me at least, it didn't feel too long, or improper. Like, I think if this movie were made nowadays, we would have opened within the first 20 minutes with the bomb going off. Yeah. And it takes a bit. They're establishing what the tensions feel like, what the signs are, the things that people are either actively or passively ignoring. Again, could they have done anything about it in Sheffield? The people that are kind of like, probably not. I don't think so. So that's part of the depressing thing of it too. But it does give you a much more richer, I think, view of all of it, as opposed to just like bomb fallout. It is like, let's establish the life, the people. Yeah. And
something that just to give a little chink of hope to everybody out there, like I think that something that I've hung on to is the fact that we got through one term and nothing happened. Sure. And to be honest, like, if everybody's theories are correct and Trump is actually kind of in Putin's pocket anyway, it's probably less likely that there's going to be any kind of like big set to between the two countries. So, you know,
with them at least, but we got others.
No, there are others. But I think cooler heads tend to, if not I think Trump has people around him that he will listen to, and I hope that at least one of them, if not themselves, then people around them might be like, "Hey, look, you can't go down that road because of this, and this." You know,
I see. To me, it's more extreme. I think and hope that he has people around him that, not that he'll listen to, but that don't give a fuck if he listens to him or not, or are there to I forget, I don't even know if it ever got revealed who it was, but in his first term there was like an op-ed in one of the papers that was released, and it was anonymous, and it was from someone who claimed to be in his kind of inner circle. And I could be misremembering some of these details, but basically it was like supposed to be this like reassurance of like, we're not going to let anything happen. Like, we're not going to let him start nuclear war or whatever else. And there was criticism about it. And there's, again, a much more like nuance to everything around it than that. But that has always stayed in my head as like, I hope that there are people like, because we know that, not to go off on too much of a specifically American political tangent here, but we know that there are people that absolutely have no problems sacrificing any kind of moral backbone, ideals, values that they have in order to kiss the ring and fucking blow Trump and get any kind of small scrap of power that they can. They're willing to give up whatever of their humanity. Like, that's not even me being like a left-leaning, like, Democrat guy. That's just, we have proof. We've seen it. Like, it is very clearly on display with so many of the people in his cabinet. And at this point, 2 terms in, enough people that have spoken up, then gotten fired. Like, you're only dealing with people who are willing to just do whatever he wants. My hope is that, again, that there are some sort of safeguards in place, that there are people internally who are like, we're not going to let him just launch some nukes if he decides one day he wants to do it. I don't know what that entails. I don't know if there are, actual things within the government that are set up to prevent stuff like that. Like, I would imagine there are protocols and everything else, but that's the only thing I can think of, is that, like, hopefully there's at least 1 or 2 people who stand between these people and the buttons, because the people that are talking, historically speaking, in more recent years, when it's come to this kind of fear for me, are people who I wouldn't trust to make me a fucking sandwich, let alone run a country. And utilizing and leaning into this dick measuring thing of like, well, we've got, and you're going to know fire and fury like never before. It's basically impossible. If I will lose my mind with anxiety, with everything else, if I think that that's all. It's almost like it's protection for my own mental state too, is that there's something more in place to stop that from happening. Because if that's all there is, realistically, then it's hard not for my mind to just be like, well, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Yeah. Like, and it's not, and I'm sure for a lot of people watching this movie talking about nuclear shit, it is already that way for them. It is a matter of if, not when. So, yeah, there's a book I probably will throw out there as my double feature pick. I'll just say it now. We're kind of in a weird structure for this segment anyway. And so I did go more of a serious route with this, but this came out last year before. It's called Nuclear War, so it's a book. It's a book, but it's by Annie Jacobsen. So Annie Jacobsen is a journalist that I like a lot. I've got a bunch of her books. I haven't read all of them. She wrote one that's really well received about Area 51, but specifically like she's a legitimate journalist, so it's not. I mean, I love paranormal UFO type shit, but there's obviously so many crazy hack people out there. Like, she did this book about what can we actually find out about Area 51. It's not about like aliens and shit. She did one about Operation Paperclip with the Nazis, scientists, and all that. She did one about the CIA and like Black Ops stuff. But then her most recent book is Nuclear War, which for a while there, Denis Villeneuve was attached to make a film adaptation, which I honestly don't fucking know how he would have. Part of me wanted him to make it just to see how they were going to adapt this book into a film. But it's called Nuclear War Scenario, and it is basically a minute-by-minute breakdown of what would happen in a hypothetical situation. In this case, it's a first strike by North Korea against the United States. And I haven't read all of it. Austin read all of it. He walked around like a man haunted for days after he finished it, even though he really liked it, just because of, again, same kind of subject matter and everything else. But this would be a much more current, if we do have listeners that are interested in this sort of stuff, as macabre and kind of depressing as it is, she does this breakdown and like goes through everything. So it's like, okay, the moment that this happens, this base over here has this technology. They're going to know. They're going to immediately implement this breakdown, which we know is detailed in this way. And so like she's going through. It's not just like this will probably happen. It's like this will trigger, this will trigger, this will trigger. And so it goes through kind of how it would all happen and what's in place. So again, not a fun beach read, but definitely one that I think is important and interesting, as long as you can stomach how just kind of dark and devastating and terrifying it all is.
Yeah.
It was, I believe it was pretty well received, and her stuff usually is. So that was the one that I thought about where I was like, that's probably what I'll pick for a double feature pick, and going along the much more like, let's take this seriously kind of, educational route, as opposed to, picking Turbo Kid or something, which, I'd watch Turbo Kid after this, because I'd watch Turbo Kid whenever. But so yeah, that was one I thought about there. I'm trying to think of something more upbeat. This is just so depressing, but it's the nature of what it is, man. Like it's hard not to, like, you read, even on Wikipedia, there's excerpts from reviews that were, that came out back then, and people talking about just walking around depressed and anxious and not knowing kind of how to react to it. But it's like, well, you guys nailed it. That's how you should feel after watching something like this. It should be something that provokes you and potentially pushes you to react or do something about it, in whatever level that is, as opposed to just being like, oh, that was a fun, BBC Two movie tonight that we all watched as a family. Like, no, let's fuck the dynamic up for a few weeks. I
would say just something that just sprung into my head immediately, just now, and I don't know how it took me so fucking long to think about this. Like, technology's moved on a long, long way since like 1984, even. Countermeasures are a thing, and not just a tit for tat thing. I mean, like, any self-respecting country, rather than just having a plan A, which is, well, let's blow them up as well, will probably have a plan A that will probably be like plan C or D. Like, okay, just fucking fry everything. Plan A is going to be, well, can we shoot that one out of the sky that's coming to us?
Right.
And the technology has moved on to the point where I think that there's a good chance that before you get to the point where you have to think about, okay, well, let's just mutually assure everybody's ass. Let's just shoot that shit down. And I think that there's, I think that's a reason for hope as well, because I would imagine that most of the larger militaries have got a good idea of what the stockpiles are, how many ground-to-air missiles they need to take care of any incoming threats as a result. and probably have that all well in hand already. It's much better to shoot something out of the sky and then be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why did you do that? Let's have a talk. Than just be like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to burn you to the ground as well. Like, you know. So
yeah.
I think that is also part of the quote unquote cooler heads is, you know, it takes two to tango, and I think a lot
I also think with some of these personalities, the arrogance at play, it would be not so. Again, this is me being more cynical about what you're saying, but like it wouldn't necessarily be cooler heads as much as just fucking selfish heads. Like, no, like I doubt. I'm sure Trump
you want to live, right? So
yeah, I'm sure Trump would continue to want to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, but if you can shoot down that missile that was headed to your country, rather than just having to go hell for leather and everybody end up suffering, then you know you do that, and then you can take the moral high ground. You get the world behind you. You can be the man that averted disaster, etc., etc. So yeah, like you said, like ego and selfishness can play a big part in keeping, and that comes back to the mutually assured destruction thing. Ultimately, the reason why that works so well is because people don't want to die, and if there's a guarantee that if you launch at them, that they'll launch at you, there's a good chance that you're going to die, or you're going to be the president that goes down in history as the one that ended everything. So, you know, I think that is a huge thing as well. On the subject of egos and presidents, have you seen the before and after of the Oval Office since he's been in? It's absolutely.
Well, I haven't seen the before, but I've seen enough pictures of it before he fucked it all up.
Yeah, basically, he's had gold filigree put everywhere. Like the Oval Office used to be plain cream. You know, there was some nice kind of plaster work on the walls, you know, going around the doors and the plinths and all that kind of stuff. Now, all of that stuff. Fucking gold leaf everywhere because it's Trump, so of course he needs gold everywhere.
It's pretty amazing how that. I mean, there are a few people I hate more in life than Donald Trump. Maybe my most hated person. I don't know. So not a fan, but it is pretty amazing how this dude's just bankrupt in every way.
Yep.
You know, morally speaking,
financially,
primarily as a leader, as a businessman, blah blah.
Bankrupted a casino for fuck's sake.
And then also literally, the thing that it shouldn't shock me, but it still sometimes kind of shocks me how even from something as, and I get that not everyone has good taste when it comes to aesthetics. I understand that that's not everyone's strong suit, but it is kind of amazing how bad his is. Like how, like I don't know. It's just like statistically, there's got to be something where Donald Trump would do something where I would be like, hate the guy, hate everything about him, but damn, he's got good taste in cars, you know, or something to where I would be like, I really also like everything that this dude does, every single thing that he touches. The fucking, I started sneezing off camera a second ago. I muted it, so that's why I'm sniffing. I'm not getting emotional. Even the like fucking shoes that he put out a while ago and the Trump buy, all this bullshit that he puts out there to trick people into buying, like it all looks so bad. Like, and not even like this doesn't look as good as it should. He's the president. I mean, shit where I'm like, this looks like fucking trash. Like it looks bad. Like actively just. They let you, a man who has no understanding or taste in aesthetics and design, anything, just do it. You know, because like that's what it always feels like, which I'm sure was the case. Like he's surrounded by people who don't tell him no. So, but it is insane how you see those pictures and stuff, and it's just kind of like, man, you're just not good at anything. Like you're not even good at decorating a room. No, like. Yeah, and he's president now for the second time.
And ultimately, he serves as the shining example as to why, if it's in your power, you should always travel back in time and punch Biff in the fucking face.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, anyway, as for my double feature pick, we are going all over the place today.
Nah, it's all good. I figured it would be like this with the nature of the movie.
You have to find your yucks where you can. I'm going to go for Dr. Strangelove. Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I've seen that movie a couple of times, and despite the fact that it deals with really serious topics, it is very funny. And again, it's a movie from years and years ago when technology was very different and society was very different. That final scene of the general riding on top of a bomb as it's flying through the air, like that's a big fucking target. You know what I mean? Like that can get shot out of the air pretty easy. But yeah, like Peter Sellers at his best, playing multiple roles in that movie. It's wonderfully funny. It also was a portent of doom at the time, but it had a good sense of humour about it, which helped balance it out. And I appreciate the fact that Freds doesn't try to lighten the mood at any point, and it really goes for a very stark and educational approach. And that's why I've gone for Doctor Strangelove, because I think you just need a little lightness, while not necessarily shying away from the same themes. A little bit of lightness can help. Also, play Fallout. Fallout's fun.
Yeah,
it's good.
And the show's good too.
It's a great show.
Shockingly good show.
Yeah. Holy shit! I'm looking forward to that coming back.
Me too. Cool. I'm glad you threw this one out there, Dave. It was one, like I said, that had been on my list forever, and I'm sure it was the same thing for Andy. It's one of those that you've always heard about and known about. I'm honestly surprised it took us this many episodes to do it on the show. Literally, I was flicking through the TV guide and it said that it was going to be on ITV over the weekend, and I was like, oh shit. And then I looked it up and I found out it was on Archive, and I looked it up and Andy, I think it was, that found out it was also on YouTube. So we had plenty of options and ways to watch it, and I guess I should throw that out there too. Severin did a restoration of it. I ended up buying the Blu-ray, which I'm glad I did. It was definitely worth it. It was like $10 maybe. It was pretty cheap. It wasn't a big elaborate set, but the special, if you're a physical media person, transfer looks great. It's a 2K transfer, and then the special features are really good too. There's a commentary from the director, I think it's the director, it might be the writer, and then multiple features with like the interview with the DP, interview with the director or with the lead actress, interview with a film critic about it at the time. So a lot of good contextual stuff if that's your bag. Also, and this is a fucking downer, but the actress that played the daughter that has the baby at the end of the movie. Yeah. So I was looking her up to see what else she was in, because she looked kind of familiar, and holy fucking shit. She died in 1990 at the age of 21 in a car crash. But she had a really promising career. She was in a couple of things in the UK, Emmerdale Farm, which is a big soap opera over here. She was also in another soap opera called Hollywood Sports that I've never heard of, and it doesn't have a clickable link, so I'm assuming that it probably wasn't very well known. But yeah, had a stage career, had a TV career, and it's a real shame. But because I was thinking to myself, how old was she when she filmed this? Because there's some very mature themes going on with her at the end of the film, so I wanted to know what kind of age she was. Because normally actors will play younger than they actually are, especially when they're playing kind of... She was meant to be like 10 years old and then 13 years old, because it went 10 years after, and then it went 3 years after that, so 13. I'm looking at it, she was born in 1969, which means that she would have been 14 years old when they filmed that. So she wasn't playing much younger. But, rest in peace, Victoria O'Keeffe. Yeah, that's a bummer to finish on. I'm sorry, but no, it's okay. I forgot to mention it previously, and I did want to bring it up because, she's got a legacy. This is the thing. She's been in something which I think everybody should watch at least once, and the fact that it's available on Blu-ray and you can find it on Archive and you can find it on YouTube, I think it's definitely a thing that everybody should, when they're in the right headspace for. And having listened to this, I hope that people are aware that they do need to be in the right headspace for watching it. It definitely is something that's worth checking out. Maybe wait until the next presidential election is done. Yeah, maybe. And either way, let us know what you thought, too. I didn't mention this at the top of the show, but if you want to send us some longer form thoughts, which this would be a movie for probably, EerieInternational@gmail.com. You can send us those. Cool. Awesome, Dave. Well, let's wrap it up here. Listeners, let us know what you thought of Threads if you watched it. Come back next week when we are talking. Don't we have next week figured out?
I think we do, but I don't know.
Since neither of us can remember immediately, let's follow us on social media.
We'll have something next week.
Yeah. We'll announce it there. But in the meantime, stay safe out there. Keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.